Yes, we just closed a round of financing for $17 million, Canadian dollars, I must clarify, so thank you. And yeah, I'm here to share with you 5 ways that really helped us raise this capital. I guess it was already described. Who here in this room is familiar with inkbox, aside from that comment now? Great, that's pretty good. So for those of you who don't know, we're basically direct-to-consumer tattoos. You apply them at home, they look real, they last around 2 weeks. And like I said, we just closed a round of financing. This is our 3rd round of financing after a seed round and a bridge round. The Series A was led by Maveron. These are all American funds except for Golden there. Golden is a local venture fund here in Toronto. Now, every time you raise a new round, it's an intense learning experience. I hadn't done this before, so I had to come into it with an open mind. And I kind of operate under this principle that I don't know anything without the proper context. And so what I hope this quick 5-minute presentation will help you understand is a little bit more context on how we thought through this raise, and hopefully if you're in this situation soon, which I hope you will be, you can leverage some of these insights. So first, you have to sell a compelling vision. For us, it was that this is a $50 billion global market with no brand. Like, think of a tattoo brand. There's nothing. And so we sold the vision that we will become the first consumer brand in tattoos. Investors, and particularly partners at funds, only get a few swings per fund. So you have to make sure that you're rewarding their risk with very, very high reward. So we were bold. We had a very bold vision, but we were honest. The number one thing I hear from investors why they passed on companies is because they didn't really trust the founders, or they didn't believe in them. It's important to understand that they're investing in both you and the opportunity in equal measure. Now, this was a challenge for us because the tattoo market doesn't really have many metrics. Like, you can't really size up the industry in any discernible way, mostly because it's a cash-based business. A lot of it's underreported. A lot of it's still kind of done underground. So we kind of had to not really make numbers up, but frame it in a particular way. So this is an example of one of the slides I led with in my deck. Now, the concept here was to frame something up front that was really changing the perception of what tattoos are, especially for older VCs. You know, tattoos were traditionally kind of on the outskirts of society, and iPhones are a symbol of millennial generation. And it's crazy to think that there's actually more US millennials with tattoos now than iPhones. And my concern was I only had 2 numbers on this graph here. I only had the last number on the blue line and the first number on the blue line. I had the pink line, so I had to kind of just fill in the rest. So I didn't lie. I was fully transparent to our potential investors at the time, but I framed it in a certain way. And I think this illuminates the fact that as a founder, one of your most important traits is as a storyteller. Like, you have to be a good storyteller, but you can't use that power to lie. You can only use it to frame. Now, back to this idea of context. You know, you don't know what you don't know. And so what we did was we set out a year before raising this round and surrounded ourselves with what I called my Series A dream team, early investors and advisors that helped us understand, you know, what company we needed to be a year from now to raise the type of capital we needed to raise. So they'll really help you understand what Series A investors expect. You know, investors benchmark you against their existing portfolio companies. So they're looking at you, and you need to be better or at least just as good as the companies in their portfolio. And for us, this dream team, as I call it, really helped us understand all of this. They've seen the movie before. They've took seed companies to Series A multiple times. Golden Ventures fund here in Toronto, that's like their mandate. Like, that's what they help you do, and they helped us do that. So I don't know if anyone from Golden is here, but if you are, thank you for that. So for example, for us, we needed to know that we needed to have a revenue run rate of at least $10 million as a direct-to-consumer brand to raise a sizable Series A financing. We needed to know that we needed a CAC over LTV of 3 to 1, because that's what's market. I use this term market because it's what they're kind of used to seeing, right? So once we had all of that context in place, the next stage was to run a process on it, like a real process. So it took us about 2 months from initial pitch to closing, which is pretty fast for a Series A round. And I credit that with running a pretty diligent process. And the first step in that is getting your dream team together and having them coordinate a list of intros for investors. So we built a list of just Google Sheets shared between 6 of us of all the potential consumer funds that could invest in us, who was the lead partner there, what are their check sizes, do they lead, do they follow, what other funds do they typically co-invest with, and then do we have intros to those people, and are those intros warm? And so from there, we went through the other steps. We coordinated those warm intros, sent like a 10-page quick little teaser deck in those intros, got the intros, got an initial call, and then flew to San Francisco, spent like 2 to 3 weeks there and New York, and did like your first pitch and then your partner pitch, and then closed from there. So I'll give you a couple of little examples here of tools we use that really helped me. First was DocSend. It's PDF uploading software, allows you to upload your decks essentially and track who opened them, what pages they spent the most time on, and it allowed me to really iterate on the deck because I would see that some people weren't looking enough at my unit economics slide. And that's a pretty strong slide, so I wanted them to look at that more. So how do I design that better? The other tip is running an Asana board, or Trello. This was all the different stages that I was playing at in the investment cycle here. And these cards were just the funds and the partners, and then my dream team and I just commented on all these together and pulled them across. I think the one interesting one to note is the back channel column here. And it's basically after the first partner meeting, we get our warm intros to reach out to that partner and get color on like how the pitch went. What do they think about me? What do they think about the vision? Is there anything I can change? And so I would tell you to have a couple throwaway pitches at the start of your financing. That really helps kind of get those jitters out of the way and get feedback on your initial pitch so that when you go to pitch the funds you really want, you got it locked down. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take 2 questions from the audience.
Thank you. In one of your earlier slides, you mentioned in one of the bullet points that knowing the right early stage people was fundamental to you getting the funding. How do you get the early stage people? How do you get to know them?
Yeah, it's a conundrum, right? Like, how do I get the ball rolling? I think that's actually that's one of the toughest things about being a first-time founder is getting the ball rolling. Because when you don't know anyone, you don't have the context. And no one's going to trust you because what have you done before, right? So for me, it was just about networking. I mean, I was at the DMZ here, an incubator, and I met some good founders, Justin being one of them here, and learned from them. They got Latif, one of our shared friends, got me an intro to Golden Ventures, and I met them like a year and a half before we raised any money from them. And they just helped me understand where I needed to be to actually get money from them. So even our Series A financing, Maveron, I knew them a year and a half before raising our Series A round. I got intros to them, I flew out there, met them, and built a relationship with them over time. And when you build a relationship over time with someone, obviously you have shared trust. And if they trust you, they're gonna intro you to other people, and then you kind of just go from there.
Next question, last question. Run, Nikki.
Thanks. Great presentation. I just have a question. Is your pitch deck or portions of it available, or do you have a blog or something writing about your process? Thanks.
Man, I should do that. SlideShare is really good for that. If you just Google like the best pitch decks, you'll find them on SlideShare. There's some really good ones on there. But I should do that eventually. Maybe an abridged version without some key metrics.
And this will be on YouTube, actually, on our channel. So thank you so much. Is your tattoo one of your products on your arm?
Yeah.
That's awesome.